Okay, welcome. This is Matthew Mansell. Thank you for watching or for joining me. If you're joining me now, or even if you're joining me in the future on the recording, this is right now live. Uh, you are watching Divine Anarchy on Voluntary Virtues Network. Again, I am your host, Matthew Mansell. Um, in this episode, last week I promised that I will continue with my series God as Enemy of the State. I will do so in the future. Probably start next week. So in this particular video, I want to deal with it's something that caught my mind or read mm, like early on in the week, and I wanted to do an overview of it in this show. So, which is an article put out by Examiner uh, on the guide to the different brands of anarchism. Being that my show is Divine Anarchy is centered around anarchism, I wanted to give a premiere or a survey of anarchist position, and do so with by critiquing or overviewing this particular article with the audience, with you guys. Uh, and I think it does a somewhat of a good job giving an overview of the different forms of anarchism. So, and I'll give you my takes on the various views of anarchism uh, on here. So as we get through, uh, anyhow, so let's start off. This the article was put out by Examiner on August the 11th of this year, uh, written by Matthew Reed, who's supposedly a Charlotte libertarian philosophy examiner. So he examined libertarian philosophy or something. I am not sure exactly what his expertise are, but nonetheless, written August 11th, no, not this year, of last year, 2013, and I just caught it this past week, so I want to go over this. Upon mention of the word anarchist, most people today will conjure up an image of a bomb-throwing, vandalizing hoodlum. But this propaganda image, created by the pro-state establishment media, is nothing more than that, a propaganda image. Let us explore the true meaning of anarchism and various schools of thought within the anarchist movement. Now, I do want to pause there. Well, it is true that that image as for anarchism is, for the most part, purely propaganda for the pro-state. There are some anarchists, self-proclaimed anarchists, who do damage property and what have you, um, and are bomb-throwing people, but these are generally on the left. There are really no such thing as a bomb throw. Well, at least there hasn't been in a bomb throwing, property destroying right anarchism. So there have been some tendency historically on the left to act in this fashion. But overall, this idea that anarchism means chaos is a propaganda piece uh, of the state, and is math and it, for the most part, has worked. The etymology of the word anarchist comes from the Greek anarchos, meaning without leaders or without rulers. Um, this is quite different from without ruled propaganda image. Rather than a chaotic state of lawlessness, an anarchist advocates a form of spontaneous order in which there is no monopoly on the enactment and enforcement of rule. The list The list items consist of flags commonly used by various symbols of thought within the anarchist movement, along with a brief description of the beliefs of those schools of thought. Now, before I continue on, he does leave out the Christian anarchists, but that could very well be that what sets the Christian anarchists apart from any other anarchists is the fact that they are Christian. They justify anarchism based on Christian theology and doctrine. But it's all possible, for example, for Christian anarchists to be a member of the various schools of thought that he presents here. In fact, it is also possible for a anarcho-pacifist, for example, which he mentions here, to be a member of one of the various other schools of thought as well. And the same is true for the agorist, which he mentioned. But I'll get into those as we move through the article. So the first one he brings up is the pure black flag, or the anarchist black flag. The solid black flag is the original anarchist flag, being associated with the anarchist movement since the 1880s. There are 3 degrees of anarchism there's 3 degrees of symbolism in the solid black flag. First, as black is the absence of color, a black flag represents the absence of a flag, and therefore the absence of a nation state. So there's it's a black flag, but it's really not a flag of any in the traditional sense of the word. Meaning it's not a stand-in for a kingdom or a state. It just means that we don't favor a nation state. Second, black is the opposite of white, and a white flag is the universal symbol of surrender. The black flag is therefore the symbol of absolute opposition to surrender, meaning we're not going to give up, we're going to continue to fight. Third, black is traditionally the color of death and mourning, so the black flag symbolizes those who died in the struggle to create a stateless society. So, yay, we get martyrdom thrown in the mix. I have no real objection here. Let's move on. The first branch of anarchism that it covers is the anarcho-syndicalist, and briefly even the anarcho-commies. Really put it up into to both use the same flag, black and white. Black and red. So the red and black diagonal flag originated with the anarcho-syndicalists of the Spanish Civil War. Anarcho-syndicalism is a branch of anarchism that advocates revolutionary industrial unionism as a means to replace capitalism and the state with a democratically managed stateless society. The red and black flag is also used by anarcho-communists who advocate the abolition of capitalism, the state, wages, and private property ownership in favor of a collective ownership of the means of production, direct democracy, voluntary association, and workers' council. Anarcho-communists believe in the guiding principle, from each according to his ability to each according to his need. Okay, that's a good summarization of it. I will note that anarcho-syndicalists believe when they say that abolition of capitalism and the industrial unionism, what they mean here is that they believe that each industry, or not industry, each, let's say a plant should be owned and ran by the workers of the plant. An example of a syndicate today would be, well, for the public, would be one such example in which the workers have a share of ownership in the company. So this is what they are this is what they're advocating. My only problem is with this philosophy. Actually, I have 2 problems. One of which is this philosophy is, like all leftist philosophies, are based on the notion that value is subjective. That value of a good or service is not subjective, but rather is derived at by labor. Hence, is why they decry capitalism, because they believe that by the capitalist, aka the owner of the means of production, uh, is and by employing other human beings in labor, that they are stealing from their worker, because they are making a profit off their work by making a profit off the worker, because the worker in their view is making less than the labor, or the amount of labor in which they put into a good. Uh, so that really their critique is, I think it's wrong. It really shows displays a very basic ignorance of economics. But it's all errors of anarchism of the left generally flow from the labor theory of value. But on top of this, the problem with the anarcho-syndicalism and anarcho-communism, both that they advocate, they believe, while they say they want to get rid of the state, their replacement is what? A management of a stateless society by democratic means. In which case, they believe that it's okie dokie, is morally okay for a group of human beings to dictate to another group of human beings what they must do, so long as it's done on a democratic means. In other words, what the majority says is right is right. So that this really isn't a abolition of government, rather the establishment of a Athenian type democracy, right? Going back to the democracy of Greece. Yes, we should have a government, quote unquote, but not a modern centralized representative type of government, but rather a more, most of them favor the decentralized societies that are run democratically. If you can, if you will call them city states, that are the rules and the laws are constructed in a based upon a democratic fashion. Um, Still, the principle that the majority gets to overlord the minority. Uh, the anarcho-capitalist flag is the second one he deals with. The yellow and black, or gold and black diagonal flag, was first used in public as an event organized by Robert Lefebvre in Colorado in 1963, and has since been adopted as a symbol of anarcho-capitalist movement. Anarcho-capitalists advocate the abolition of the state in favor of personal sovereignty and a free market with all services that are currently provided by governments, being provided by competing agencies, which are funded without force, fraud, or coercion. Many anarchists or other schools of thought do not consider anarcho-capitalism to be a proper form of anarchism, while many anarcho-capitalists find similar flaws fault with other schools of thought within the anarchist movement. Uh, this is true. In fact, the critique of the left toward us and ANCAP is that, well, it's not it's not truly anarchism, because they favor the ownership of the means of production and a normal, or they would favor, at least have it illegal, to where you have an employer get to employ somebody for services. So the employee-employer relationship is hierarchical, and everyone, at least the left, make the argument that anarchism is against hierarchy. So, all forms of hierarchical system, and hence why they oppose the worker employer-employee relationship. The problem is that it's really conflating anarchism with something else that's not anarchism. It seeks to add on top of it. Um, and on top of it, it's hypocritical. Like I said, the anarcho-syndicalists and anarcho-capitalists themselves favor hierarchy in which the majority get to rule the minority. That's a form of hierarchy. They also almost none, well, with the exception of one or two that I know personally, but generally almost nobody favored the abolition of a parent-child relationship, and that is inherently hierarchical. Nobody rejects a teacher-student relationship, and that is a hierarchical relationship. So really, the ANCOMs are, and anarcho-syndicalists, at least these particular anarchists, if not all the other ones, but especially the syndicalists and commies, are hypocritical in this fashion. Furthermore, a workers' council would also imply a form of hierarchy. So the criticism really doesn't hold well on that. But otherwise, he gets anarchism correct, or anarcho-capitalism correct. We believe that the services that are professed to be provided by government, mainly roads, port, police, uh, military defense, if you will, uh, and what have you, mail, parts, yada yada yada, they go on, should be provided, can be provided voluntarily on the free market. Now, anarcho-capitalists, by the way, do not oppose syndicates being set up. We don't oppose mutual aid societies or anything. In fact, we would encourage them to be, for people who favor those institutions, those types of organizations, to set them up. We don't necessarily, even though we think communism won't last, communists are still free to set up a commune, as long as they leave the rest of society alone and not force everyone to go with it. That we oppose. It's force. The next group is the green anarchism flag. The green and black diagonal flag is used by green anarchists, social ecologists, and anarcho-primitivists. All of these schools of thought place emphasis on environmental issues and critique the role of the nation state have played in damaging nature. Social ecologists view environmental problems as being rooted in social problems, and with the solution being achieved through radical democracy. Anarcho-primitivists suggest a return to pre-industrialized society through deindustrialization, abolition of the division of labor, and abandonment of large-scale technology. Yeah, uh, I'm not sure how specifically accurate this is, but overall it makes a general overview of it, a correct overview uh, of this philosophy. Again, my problem, the solution is a radical democracy. Um, I don't see how democracy is going to would be necessarily the solution to environmental problems, especially given that all that means is that whatever the majority rules is the rule, right? The minority lose. So it's plausible that the majority vote to will destroy an entire forest, right? Deforest an entire area, that or allow a plant to pollute water. Well, green anarchists would oppose pollution, but if you really stand for democracy, then that's a possibility, right? An absolute possibility. So again, we have this problem where they believe in the fundamental error that immorality becomes moral because of a democratic process. That that majority rule equals the right rule. This is a flawed view, and the only way democracy, a democratic election, can really be enforced is through, well, coercion. Um, to be exact, what if I refuse to go into this democracy? I refuse to consent, and well, your non-vote doesn't count. So it's in effect the same BS system we have now almost. And the same thing with the anarcho-capitalism. How do they propose to return to a pre-industrialized society? They don't even go into that. Or how do you do deindustrialization outside of coercion? How do you abolish the division of labor um, outside of coercion, or the abandonment of large-scale technology? Literally, you'd have to outlaw all of this, and you have to make an entire nation a police state to enforce this insane archaic law. And furthermore, it's also destructive. Let's say we did abandon it. What this would mean without division of labor, each and every person would have to go and, well, grow their own food, slaughter their own cow, right? If they eat meat, grow their own cotton, and make their own shirt. You really won't have. I mean, you really want starvation. There you go. Not everyone is skilled to where they can make their own clothes and make their own um, food, because not everyone is skilled that have those skills. You're gonna have a lot of people starve. No, this could be absolutely maybe a really an answer to the population problem that supposedly exists, right? Uh, but this is really not a real solution. Uh, and the only people that really going to be well off are, well, farmers and people who can pay. Really, farmers are the people going to uh, make off on this. People who are skilled at those things. Uh, and there's only going to be, because there's no division of labor, there's going to be less and less corn being grown, less and less cotton being grown, less and less whatever being grown, and pigs being slaughtered, so less bacon and what have you uh, within society. So in which case the standard of living will indeed go down, and everyone will be in a state of absolute poverty in a real sense. It is the division of labor and uh, the acquisition of technology, the industrialization that lifted millions out of their poverty and allowed for an abundance of food and clothing that we see today, and the ability for even the poorest among Americans to have clothing and food, almost an abundance of it, and even have now cell phones and fans and air conditioning. So this is quite that's a recipe for disaster, in my opinion. But anyhow, uh, we're not even done, and it's already 24. The next one is the anarcho-feminist. Purple and black diagonal flag is used by the anarcho-feminists to it combines anarchism with feminism, viewing that both patriarchy and the state as forms of involuntary hierarchy that must be abolished, but viewing the abolition of both patriarchy and statism as an essential part of class struggle. Um, yeah, can we say delusional? Uh, how the hell do they even propose to abolish patriarchy if the patriarchy is an abstract concept? Literally, it's an impossibility. Um, that's for one. I mean, they first have to demonstrate that A, it exists, but B, or at least there's a problem. Uh, B, that they would have to find a way to figure out how to abolish it without setting up a matriarchal society, in which it's possible that that's what they actually may prefer is a society in which women ruled men, in which case this would be a involuntary hierarchy. The next one is queer anarchism, which is a pink and black flag, basically a combination of the LGBT community with anarchism. Even though this, again, you can be hold to this view and hold to any other view of anarchism, viewing that the state is what is the aggressor against the LGBT community, and that by abolishing the state, you abolish well, the discrimination, at least large-scale discrimination against the LGBT community. The next one, anarcho-pacifism, white and black flag. Anarcho-pacifism combines anarchism with pacifism, rejecting the state as a violent, coercive institution, which also rejecting the use of violence to bring about the end of the state. Some anarcho-pacifists also reject capitalism as a violent institution. So here, possible to be anarcho-pacifist and be, for example, a mutualist or any other form of anarchist, or even an anarcho-capitalist. There are several ANCAP that are also pacifist. So this is compatible with any other group, unless with any other view, saying that violence is wrong. My problem is that I happen to agree with the defense of violence is actually justifiable. The agorist flag is the gray and black flag. Agorism is a free market anarchist school of thought which advocates the use of counter-economics to bring about peaceful end to the state. Methods include the use of alternative currencies, entrepreneurship, self-sufficiency, and practice of peaceful economic activity that is forbidden by the state. And agorism is closely related to anarcho-capitalism. Even technically, you can also be a mutualist and be an agorist at the same time. A form of free market anarchism that advocate the abolition, that the means by which you abolish the state is by engaging in the black market, basically, and alternative currency. The mutualist flag is the orange and black triangle flag is used by mutualists. Mutualist anarchism is a school of thought focusing on the freedom of association and reciprocity. Mutualism is based on the labor theory of value, which holds that the value of labor or the product should reflect the amount of labor necessary to produce an article of exactly similar or equal utility. Early mutualist anarchists, including the school of thought, as a synthesis between individualist anarchism and collective anarchism, as well as a synthesis between capitalism and communism. So, like anarcho-capitalism, they believe in a relatively free market and non-coercion. They believe in free trade, but like the communists, they reject private ownership of the means of production. Well, I wouldn't say they necessarily. Yeah, they reject private ownership in the means of production. They believe in somewhat. They believe in what the ownership is based on use, if you will. The hint of which comes out from the labor theory of value. They believe in property ownership, but not in the classical Lockean sense of property ownership, private property ownership. Again, it's a synthesis of capitalism and communism, a form of left anarchism, but it's an individualist anarchist movement on the left that is also, for the most part, pro-market. They get a few things wrong here and there, but precisely because of the labor theory of value. The last one is anarcho-transhumanism, and I went over time, I think. Yes, it is now 9:30. Thank you for watching Divine Anarchy. You can catch me here at Voluntary Virtues Network every Saturday night at 10 to 10:30 Eastern Standard Time. And just real quick, the anarcho-transhumanist flag is blue and black, and represents the school of thought that seek to advance technology and improvement in the human condition as the most important means of achieving the end of the nation state. Anarcho-transhumanists believe that social liberty is strongly linked to material liberty, and that freedom is ultimately a matter of expanding our capacity and opportunity to engage in the world around us. Anarcho-transhumanism is related to anarcho-capitalism and agorism, while being opposed to anarcho-primitivism. So that's what you have there. My worry is that I don't necessarily think that improvement in technology is actually going to necessarily abolish the state. Might want to abolish the state prior to having a transhumanist world. But again, I can at least if you want a complete transhumanist world. But overall, considering the fact that the state is generally a decade behind everyone else on some technological things, this is a plausible path forward as well. So again, thank you for watching Divine Anarchism. Peace out.